Shalom and good day all, this is the Healing29 back again for an indie and Marvel comic review, and in these indie and Marvel comic reviews I'll be covering Invincible, Battle Beast by Robert Kirkman, and for the Marvel I'll be covering Godzilla versus X-Men. So I'll now get things ready and organised for the first one that I'll be covering. So starting off with Battle Beast, issue 1, or the one-shot. Does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Next is the area of the internal art, but also what's happening character-wise, or what's happening story-wise with the characters. So as the story begins, we have the character of Battle Beast, who has just fought many of the members on the Invincible Earth. of Invincible's Earth, and of course he certainly made a mess of things, and of course he returns to a ship and begins to move to the next place. Alright, already alone this character feels a little bit way better written than a certain DC character created by Brian Michael Bendis by the name of Godzilla. As we start to approach the middle of the story, we see the character of Battle Beast going up against his next opponent, and if it's one thing that this character of Battle Beast reminds me of, he reminds me of a bit like a space gladiator of sorts, and the only thing he's in for, or the only thing he wants is just the next fight. And every fight is another trophy to him. And of course we move towards the end, to which we end up to which Battle Beast ends up encountering someone by the name of Prince Salaka. And after all this fighting, he also has a bit of an appetite. So for the internal art, I give it a 7 out of 10, as it certainly did show that the character of Battle Beast is in for nothing more but the battle. Next is the area of the story. So first things first, did we get anything time-wise? The answer is no. Next is the location. Nothing really there. And last but not least, the cast of characters, to which we had the character known as Battle Beast, and also someone by the name of Prince Salaka. The overall story rating I give is a 6.5 out of 10. The reason why it's sort of so low is that I think Robert Kirkman should have actually at least given the name of the heroes, instead of expecting your new readers to know who your heroes are. Like, even if you just put down their names next to the characters that had fallen under Battle Beast, I think it would have worked out a little bit more better, and that's why it gets the 6.5 out of 10. Alright, now it's time to move into Godzilla versus the X-Men. So, as we move into Godzilla versus the X-Men, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Surprisingly, it does, because we do actually get to see the X-Men travel to a location in this story and try to deal with a situation which actually involves Godzilla, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the internal art around the beginning, middle and end of the story, and what's happening story-wise with the characters. So as the story begins, we catch up with Professor X, and a little bit before that we actually do get to see something that is taking place in Japan with one of the X-Men known as Sunfire, and we learn that in the situation they are this particular X-Men is having issues with the character of Godzilla being around, and they're not too sure why they're around. And this is where we get to see the characters of the X-Men in the main location where they are at. I feel like with this art, with what they were trying to do with the story, they were trying to capture a lot of maybe the Chris Claremont era of art. Only because I've seen so much of it, but not all of it. As we start to move towards the middle of the story, we finally have the X-Men that have turned up in Japan, and we learn that they've also got something called the Super Adaptoid with them. And this Adaptoid also has some abilities of its own, to which we also get to see a Tri-Sentinel Mecha Kaiju of sorts that's meant to, I think, go up against Godzilla in the story. As we finally move towards the end of the story, Godzilla has finished what he needs to do, along with the characters of the X-Men who have to play their part in being the hero. For the internal art, I give it a 7.5 out of 10 because what you got on the outside, you also got on the inside. Next is the area of the story. Now, considering the Godzilla has been been connecting to other previous stories from Spider-Man to Hulk and whatever else, I thought there might have been some references to which none were included, but that is fine. Next is the area of time, to which we had days later and 2 days later being covered. The next area is location, to which a majority of this story took place in Japan, and I thought that was actually a really good idea with them taking the story to Japan, considering the character of Godzilla is actually something from Japanese cinema and film, as well as stories and whatever else. So I thought that was a great idea. I'm glad they introduced that in this story, and I think it's one of the main stories that have actually covered Japan personally with the Godzilla versus members of the Marvel Universe. I do wonder if they will return again maybe in later issues in the Godzilla versus, but I don't know yet. So next is the last area, which is the cast, which we had Sunfire, Godzilla, we had Professor X, we also had Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Wolverine, Gambit, the Super Adaptoid, and of course the Tri-Sentinel Mecha Kaiju. For the overall rating, I give a 7.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colorful and have yourself an awesome day.